Okay, we'll call the Borough Council meeting to order. We are all here with the exception of David Grove and Ross Jacobs, who are both excused, and our mayor, Tim Cuss. So, first off, welcome to tonight's Borough Council. And is there anybody who would like to make public comment? Okay. Then I'd like to start with consideration of the council meeting minutes of September 14th and October 5th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. The council minutes of December 14th and October 5th are, wait, we have to vote. Sorry. Everybody who approves, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no nays. They are approved 5-0. And then let's go straight on to the environment. Lauren.
Nothing really to report except that we had 11 volunteers at Little Crow Creek Park on Saturday, and it went well. That's all I have.
Okay. Finance, Michael.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. First of all, we will have our Finance Committee meeting 7:30 a.m. October 26th. We'll have further discussions on the budget mainly and any other items that need to be discussed. Moving on to the financial report for September. Not a lot to comment on. Things look as expected, with revenues at 97.1% and expenditures at 67.9%. Revenues just slightly below where they were last year in terms of percent of expected, and expenditures actually even fewer than last year on a percentage basis. And the cash balance at the end of September 30th was $1,850,857. Does that still put us on track, Jane?
Yep, yeah, I'm still looking, I did still an estimate of 410.
Okay, so I think things look to be in good order, as expected. Next, moving on to the wire transactions and checks to ratify. I'd like to make a motion to approve wire transactions in the total of $3,983.07 and checks to ratify of $14,395.28.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the wire transactions and the checks to ratify. Is there a second?
Second.
Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the wire transactions and checks to ratify in the amounts given by Michael Carey are approved.
And then now moving on to bills to pay. I hope everyone's had a chance to review the bills in their particular area, but I'd like to make a motion pending discussion to approve bills to pay of $707,470.33.
Okay, there's a motion to approve bills to pay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Everybody who approves, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And anybody who does not? No? Okay. So checks to pay in the amount given are approved.
I'll note that this is one of our heaviest months. We have our last payment to the Sewer Authority, which is, I can't even remember, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then this is the month where we pay the pension fund. So the non-uniform payment is $82,000 and the police was
$296,783.
Right. So that's big numbers.
Yep.
And then I'll open it up for a brief discussion on the budget. I know we talked about it last week. I think one thing I would add to it is I think about our committee meeting coming up on the 26th is that I saw yesterday that the the COLA for Social Security is zero this year, so there was no increase. So I think that's something for us to think about as it relates to things that we're increasing things for, whether it's pay or taxes themselves, and sort of factor that into the consideration of each line item. At least I would like to do
Has
that.
COLA been zero in any recent past
It
year?
may have been in 2009 or 8.
Really? Okay.
I mean, in the borough or in the country? Yes.
Country.
The country, the official.
Yeah. The inflation was
Yeah.
literally zero. I mean,
Right.
ex food and energy, I think it was 1.7%, but obviously people
Okay.
drive and eat. So I don't know if that's fair.
I guess if we could continue the discussion a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Normally what I do is make adjustments to the budget. We got our final number in for health benefits, which is a little lower than anticipated. We have a new number for liquid fuels. I think we mentioned that was higher than anticipated. I usually update the budget for that for the finance committee, and if council wants, we could choose to put in the requests of the organizations, or we could leave them out. We should decide probably one way or another.
Right.
We'll leave it as is. You can change it in November. We'll talk about it again at the council meeting in November. There's really 3 more passes before we do a proposed budget. And then December, you're not held to that original budget at all. You can change it if you feel things have changed again.
For an opinion, I'd leave it in because it appeared that as everything rolled up out of committee, we had approvals out of committee, and then we didn't hear much objection and conversation last week.
I think the main thing from last week
That'd be
that
my,
we did sort of intentionally leave a bit more open was because, David, you were not here last week. We wanted to continue the discussion about fire department.
Okay.
So, is there anything you wanted to sort of say to add to that? We discussed it a bit. but we-
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what I said the last time. That was it. But as you know, just to repeat the obvious, they've asked for $25,000 more than the previous year, and that's been kind of the way things have been going from year to year, basically $25,000 increase. And we all know the reasons for it, because it's increasingly difficult to staff a volunteer fire company with volunteers. And what that means is, I think for the future, we're looking at probably a mixed fire company, some volunteers, some paid professionals, either paid part-time or paid full-time. And, who knows, eventually it may migrate to entirely professional, I don't know. But, as we've discussed, there is a real decline in volunteerism, you might say, across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, across the country for that matter. So this isn't a unique problem for us, but it's one we're obviously going to have to deal with. In the short term, we're not talking about that for this year's budget. I've looked at the request, the committee looked at the request, and to me, it seems reasonable. The only thing I think I would add, and I'm not quite sure, this is something council needs to talk about, I'm not quite sure how to do it. I think we need to make an effort. I know the fire company has made a tremendous effort to reach out to the community, primarily with the purpose of getting financial support and volunteers. We have mentioned the situation to the college, not in any kind of a formal sense, but just as the opportunity arose, so to speak. But I think, it's probably come time when we, I guess Borough Council, needs to remind the citizens of the borough, and maybe we're doing that tonight, or at least starting it, that, there may be some changes coming with respect to fire protection and ambulance service, in the sense that for decades and decades we've had the luxury of having a volunteer service which obviously folks have contributed to either with sweat equity via volunteerism or with cash. But as I say, we're probably beginning a period of transition. And I'm guessing that one way or another, if we want to have those services local in Swarthmore, we as a community are going to have to figure out a way to pay for it. And so it's probably not a bad idea to start right now, kind of getting the word out in the community that there's a change in the offing. You know, not this year, not next year, you know, when exactly, and who knows yet what form it'll take. But so I would say, with respect to this year's request for $125,000, I think that's, you know, reasonable. I think we should do it. You know, whether we simply continue to pay for it that way, year after year, or whether we ultimately end up with some other kind of arrangement, I don't know yet. But that's my 2 cents worth.
And as I recall, in the committee discussion, there are average, costs that communities use towards fire department services, and we are still far under that
Yes.
percentage.
Yes.
But I think, am I making this up, but did we also possibly discuss the idea that at some point going forward, we might actually try to educate the community about the cost of fire by almost making it a line item that is very identifiable, and therefore, people can really see that this is a clear need for anybody who can step up and volunteer, or people who can donate. That sort of makes it
I think that's
strong rationale.
Yeah, that's definitely in the spirit of that, and it is possible to levy a fire tax. I forget what the percentage, how high you can go, how many mils, but 3 something, I think. And above that, you have to have a referendum. That's again not saying we're at that point, but that is one possible outcome in the years ahead. But I think in the meantime, I think it would be a great idea to highlight it as, okay, this is how much, this year, next year, whatever it is, so folks can see. I think you have to say at this point, it's objectively speaking, it's not a large contribution the borough is making, partly because there are contributions coming from other sources, like the college, for example, and private donations and so forth. But still, I think it would be a good idea.
But it's also should be noted that it's a contribution. The amount asked for by for the borough to contribute is still not making the fire department whole.
That's right.
So the
That's right.
the monies that are there are slowly diminishing.
That's right. Yeah, we're not. Let me put it this way: we're keeping the lights on, but not indefinitely, even at this level of contribution. So.
Well, I think also the issue is not the actual magnitude, but it's the rate of increase.
Right,
That
exactly.
ultimately we have to deal with.
Right.
The absolute number of this particular year or last year is not,
Exactly.
but it's really the
Right.
future and whether we can
Right.
subsidize it properly.
Well, we're starting at a fairly low level, so obviously it looks like a big rate. But anyway, no, these are all issues that we're going to have to wrestle with in years to come.
Frankly, the other issue that does come into play is that as the college has been very active in the last couple of years in building new buildings, that has an impact. And the college is slowly increasing the student body, and that has an impact. So, you know, that is something that has to be talked about going forward, I think, too.
Absolutely.
But there's certainly a correlation between, you know, land development applications, which come fast and furious, and, you know, fire department demands.
So, not necessarily with a vote, my recollection from last time was all the committee recommendations were taken, which was SRA's increase, the library's increase.
I think there was two that weren't right.
And they were not. And so then is there consensus to change the line item for the fire from 100,000 to 125?
Yes.
Speaking for the
For
group.
me.
David, I think with you not being here, we're kind of in consensus, but wanted your input, and you just gave it. So yeah, I think we're in consensus.
Yeah.
I think
Okay, and I'll send it out. I don't know if anyone else can go to the finance committee meeting, but, no.
Was there another outstanding item as well?
I don't think so. I think that was it. We're waiting for a few things, and as I said, as it started to finalize, and nothing has finalized in a direction that would be
Was
tougher for the.
was the police request approved, or?
We did.
For the budget, yeah.
We did the budget as discussed in
Right.
the, were you at that?
No, I wasn't
You were
here.
not. Okay. Does
Yeah.
somebody want to tell them?
Yeah, we added a new item, a new line item. It's
Thank you.
number on line 11, contribution to capital. And essentially what this is for is it would include the police department, but the committee, the public safety committee, utilizing that fund and prioritizing the needs would be able to
That's it.
access that capital for things that are necessary so that it's a regular ongoing, trying to make this a regular ongoing contribution. So capital improvements, whether it's to the building, to the police, as needed by the borough.
Right.
An overall line item capture all the
Instead of going request.
smaller.
Yeah,
And that's-
exactly. So makes really push it down to the committee level and use that account.
Okay.
Come up with some process for determining capital expenditures during the year, but so that the operating budget has the same number every year.
Right. Okay.
Right. And I think the other item that was left a little bit in limbo after last week's meeting is that the government committee actually did not hear directly from the community center.
That was done.
So
We didn't, but out of committee, we agreed not to increase their.
Okay, they know that.
Okay,
So they do.
okay.
Ask one other thing, there was another item that we discussed about.
Town center.
No, not town center, about potentially $9,000 from, I think it's from the school district.
Right.
That we
Towards
theoretically.
SRA? Or-
No, this is just for the,
There is
The
a,
fees incurred by SRA.
not that.
Uh,
I think it's a different item.
right, so in the finance committee, I think we're going to have a discussion about a part of the borough code that would allow the borough to recapture half the crossing guard salary. Nether Providence also, most municipalities, I think, do actually share the cost with the school district. Nether Providence does not, and they had talked about doing it this year. I don't think they've actually done so yet. I don't want to speak for them, but it is a possible income source. And for this council, it would be sort of the same as the increased fees that have been paid for use of the buildings.
But that's not.
They're not, they're two different items.
Correct. Right. So I don't think SRA's budget is contingent on getting this money. I think it was.
That would be additive
Right.
to theory.
And then the other two budget items, David, that we discussed, just to kind of catch everybody up, even though this is legislative session. Mr. Grove is kind of pushing for various paving
Yes,
Yes.
proposals, and so that is kind of a moving number.
he was going to look at.
And I'm speaking,
And the liquid fuels number came in better than.
and I'm speaking in his absence, but that was
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
ones we weren't quite I's dotted, T's crossed, and
Okay.
I'm fairly sure, and I could even add it in the budget if people are in general agreement. I came up with with about 400, who did we send?
Oh, that's right, you were going to
I
ballpark it for.
ballparked, based on the cost of our job this year, in the streets that I looked at last year, Cousin looked at last year, that did not make it into the program. And we thought it was about $440,000 worth of work, which, is great. It's never going to happen, but I think it's going to be his committee's recommendation to take the extra $23,000 that came in from liquid fuels. That's that gas tax money that's increasing every year for 4 years, and allocate it to the paving program. So the paving program would be increased from the current amount, which is 84 plus engineering cost, by this $23,000. And getting a much longer way than we've been doing on our streets.
So, and I like the idea of a long-term kind of planning, which roads you need to fix maintenance-wise. This is really more, I guess, financial question for you, Gene. If there were roads that we were scheduled to fix this year, this calendar year, and we have money dedicated to that, does that money roll over up into next year if it doesn't get?
We used every penny this year.
Oh, we're already in the red.
So we only had 84,000 in the budget this year. The program came in at about 250.
Sure.
We had
And that's
something
with
from
the Aqua?
Aqua paid us about 130. We had 84.
Okay.
Maybe it came in at 296. I think that's what it was. So we allocated extra money out of reserves, which I've taken into account here for this. So.
I have a question, and this has come up in past years, past several years anyway. Looking over year-to-date totals, as we were last year and I think the year before, we are substantially over what we estimated as revenue from permits. We're more than $100,000 over what we estimated. Knowing what has come through land development applications, do we change that?
I mean,
there are always
because anything can
I know,
happen.
we've taken a very conservative
And I upped it a little bit.
Right.
What's our placeholder, Gene?
The placeholder-
125,000,
Okay.
Yeah.
we're at 224,000 year to date.
There are costs too that will go with it.
There are costs, and
Right.
the problem
So it's not
is
like
you
just-
just don't know. A land development proposal is good for, approval is good for 5 years.
Right, so you don't know when it's going to happen.
Something
Right.
happens and they
When
decide.
we do bring in that extra amount that we are, for instance, this year, where does that overage go? Does it
It
go to
just
the
stays in the
general?
unrestricted fund
Okay,
balance.
okay.
Right.
So there are other costs
helps.
for it too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
the
not-
expenses might be a little higher than we had budgeted because of that. And then sometimes you'll have revenue that's a shortfall. For instance, this year we were short on our sanitary sewer revenue. We talked about that. And in a mishmash of worlds, you can, in one, it doesn't really offset the other, that's not really fair, but when you look at the fund balance at the end of the year, you can, you're sort of looking at the big picture.
Right.
So I just, because you can't make that revenue up. If you say it's gonna come in and the building permit
Right.
doesn't happen, you're really stuck.
Right. Right.
So I agree, it's a little frustrating.
Well, and I guess, Michael, to your point, though, like, it's still overall a small number relative to our budget, so even if
Right.
we're
Yeah.
100 grand over,
That
it's
is
not a
true.
lot of.
Yeah.
And you have to pay inspectors and other stuff too, right? So
Absolutely.
there's
It's
all-
just, we just spent $700,000 this month.
Yeah, I mean, our inspectors here every day looking at
So
the.
the net
Right.
amount to the borough is not 100,000 or whatever that number
Right.
is, it's something less than that. But what the exact number is, I don't know, but there
Right.
are costs associated with it, it's not just pure profit.
And the other thing is if you increase it and then their building stops, then you're
Right.
really stuck because you have to, then it's sort of been built into your budget
Right.
unrealistically. Because it's
Right.
fun.
Okay. Any other discussion on budget? Okay. All right, then, general government.
Nothing new since last week, so nothing to report. We meet a week from today, Monday, in this room, 8:30 a.m.
Planning and zoning, it's me. I don't have anything new from last week per se. There are a number of meetings coming up. There will be a planning and zoning committee meeting fourth Tuesday of the month, 7:30 a.m. There is a planning commission meeting a week from tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. The college is presenting the preliminary land development for a new project. And there is a zoning hearing board meeting the fourth Tuesday of October at 7:30 p.m. I did, however, want to throw out one sort of continuing topic on the IN institutional ordinance that I'm hoping to have in front of council for a motion to advertise at the beginning of November. There's a topic on it that has gone back and forth in both Planning Commission and in the Planning and Zoning Committee, and Ralph and I actually this morning were talking about it also, and I wanted to throw it out as a possible short discussion. As you know, we have now separated, we're proposing to separate institutional into a INB, which is the small parcels sprinkled around town, versus INA, which is the big college parcel. And INB parcels are, by their nature, much more integrated into the residential fabric of the town. We allow, as a general use, on those parcels, dormitories, among other types of buildings. And at one point, we discussed in both Planning Commission and on the committee that perhaps it was more suitable for those dormitories to be described as suite style, i.e. Units that would include kitchen, sort of an apartment type unit, because of two factors. One being a little bit more conducive to the overall residential neighborhood they were in, and secondly, the issue of in terms of the college, the students crossing the main thoroughfares in town to go to meals, at a common dining hall. Currently, the draft does not describe dormitories as suite style. There are, I can argue both ways on it. The college has commented that they see the communal main dining hall on the core part of campus as a community building, togetherness in terms of eating, and so that's one aspect. You can also argue the sense of, if dorms were built on the smaller INB lots, should they mimic a residential style in a closer way? So I didn't know if anybody had any feelings one way or the other on that.
So the thought behind it was, it's not that they couldn't build a traditional dorm, they need a variance to build.
No, they can, well, it depends what we leave in.
Well, that's what I'm trying to
Right.
get right down to it. So
right.
you're saying you'd write it so that they could only...
It could either be written as the permitted use is any kind of dormitory, or permitted use is a suite style dormitory.
But right now, it's just generic
Mhm.
dormitory. Okay.
Yeah, but it has gone back and forth over the last number of months between, at times, both Planning Commission and the committee have sort of liked the idea of suite style, but then also seen the other end of that.
I have no opinion on it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I didn't cook in college when I had a kitchen.
I don't either.
I guess we
I don't-
can't
I
stop
don't
them
know.
from building one
Right.
at INB, is that the real?
We do have that.
Seems like a non-ideal situation for the college and the town.
It's probably not the most ideal situation, but we've felt that
they have every right, like anyone else, to do it.
And it's not, I mean, there are other types of college buildings that we have said would not be appropriate in the INB. Some of the more, utilitarian, right, maintenance facilities and right. But, dorms are permitted, academic buildings, not laboratories, actually. We took those out. So again, because these are plots of land that are in residential areas. So I just didn't know if anybody had any feeling one way or the other. So throw that out. Okay, well, I don't have anything else on planning and zoning, so we can move on to public safety.
Right, so we have a regularly scheduled meeting this month, third Tuesday of the month. Is it Tuesday? Wednesday? Third. I don't have I left my iPhone
It's Tuesday.
in the office today.
Hey, you're helpless.
And it's called all day, and I have no calendar or anything, so I have no idea. I'm completely lost.
A
But
quiet night.
yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, third Tuesday of the month at 7:30. So we'll pencil that in. I may revisit whether or not we're actually going to have a meeting when we get closer to the date. It depends if we have something to discuss. And that's it. I don't have a report.
Okay. Public Works, if Grove is not here, is there anything that anybody on this committee needs to?
Yeah, there's one thing, which is that we're not actually meeting on the 22nd, and we'll reschedule that to another
Or
day.
not, if the only agenda item is this thing with the paving, we may
Oh.
not even meet.
Yeah,
But
but
anyway,
the
as I said,
important thing
yeah.
is we're not meeting on October 22nd.
Okay, okay. And the mayor is not here, so there won't be a mayor's report. Jane, it's
All right,
you're up.
let me do the agenda items and I had a couple other things. I don't know why I put that we were advertising for the 2014 tree removal contract, it should be 16, but I guess I forgot to send that. This is the one that we do every year. We have not been successful in getting bidders in the last few years, in spite of the fact that we send it out to everyone, the bid package out to everyone who's ever bid on it. And what we do is we get their unit prices for removal of trees, and then during the year, we pay for the removal of the tree, and the homeowner whose tree is being removed pays 60% of the cost, and they also have to plant a replacement tree. So this is just the time of year when we do that.
One thing I saw there, which I normally asked you about earlier, but it's a little bit today, it said elms have to be removed. Should we do the same for ash?
I don't know if ash is we could, let me ask.
I don't know my diseases well enough,
Yeah.
but it seems
Oh.
worth inquiring.
They said that that's coming no matter what, but I can certainly ask.
Yeah, it's the emerald ash borer,
Yeah.
and I think if it's not here, it's on the doorstep, so. And there are some dead ash trees around town, which I'm assuming that's what got them.
Yeah,
but it could
so
be
I'll
something.
certainly ask, that's a great idea.
Um,
Because we haven't sent it out yet, actually. We just talked about that today, so we can make that change. If it's recommended by the tree committee, we'll call someone tomorrow.
So, Jane, you're looking for an authorization to advertise? Okay, so if we could have a vote for authorization to advertise bids for the 2015 16, sorry, street tree removal contract.
Do you need a motion?
A motion?
If so, I so move.
Okay,
Second.
second, okay, there's a motion and a second. Can we have a vote? Everybody who approves, please say aye.
Aye.
And that sounded unanimous.
Good.
So,
We set up the 2016 schedule. We're running into some conflicts in October again with Columbus Day and Jewish holidays. So if anybody wants to take a look at those, any particular reason why we couldn't move them to Thursday, other than that, I think we vote on this in December. I just want people to see it. I have a couple of other things. I've had a request from a couple of businesses, including the co-op, to purchase banners that would go on the borough's light poles. that would basically advertise the adjacent business. The co-op showed me a mock-up of their design. It says, I guess, Swarthmore Co-op and a picture of vegetables, and then they'd have one that said foods or something like that. But I was really uncomfortable doing anything with it, and it seemed to me, I talked to Bob about it a little bit, and I certainly don't feel like I have the right to tell people how to.
I don't like it.
Right, yeah.
And I take it back to Swarthmore Town Center, and we'll let Marty kick it around.
Or it can go to committee, it can go to your committee.
Yeah,
with
that's what I meant.
downtown.
We'll-
So I just
we'll-
wanted to
we'll
maybe
back to
assign
that.
it to a committee, make a decision tonight, but I certainly didn't.
I would,
How many businesses have asked?
Well, only two. I mean, the big one is the co-op, and I have had a business ask me in the past, and I kind of probably brushed it off, but the co-op has now actually gone and actually done a mock-up, which I don't think is a big deal, and they're perfectly understood that it was a big decision to use the public. It's the public right of way, and public light bulb.
yeah, I would recommend you adopt some policy, and Median Borough has a policy that allows nonprofits only within that have some Median Borough presence to place banners on the light standards on State Street. And that the Community Action Agency is a breast cancer awareness, there's a few things like that. And
Things that are temporary in nature.
yes, and it's for like the month of,
like,
you know, something like that.
Jazz.
But
Seems like we're looking at.
I think you should
Some
have,
events.
yeah, you should have a
Music
policy,
events.
because you don't want to, you want to make it clear that you are not converting these to a public forum, because then any, you know, loon can put up anything they want, you know, you don't
And then our
want to
50-page
preserve,
sign ordinance, we do.
you want to preserve the.
Well, this is not on
the
the-
public's property and
This is
not.
not a public signpost, so no, it talks about banners attached to
Buildings.
buildings.
And it does talk about off-site billboards.
Yeah, I thought it referenced like the.
I mean, no is a perfectly fine answer, I just think it would be great if it came out of committee and.
Yeah, I mean, the issue here
Yeah.
is that it becomes very much a, because of where it's hanging, it becomes a much more public kind of notice than if it was attached to the business itself or so on. And I can also see a problem with the gaps.
Now you have an agenda item. I'm just laughing, because again, it's going to be several people have said, there is no handicap spot near the Swarthmore Co-op. We have had, I have had several requests.
Of the 4 parking spots near.
Well, it's the one, the
There's
specific
5.
request was to take one of the 3 that are on Dartmouth in
Right.
front of the co-op. There is one on Myers Avenue, but it's sort of a long ways away. There's 2 in front of Borough Hall, but there's none directly in front of the co-op. There's no particular procedure for it. I talked to Bob about it. We don't really have to do it by resolution. I actually did ask the co-op if they thought, I mean, parking is tight, but, you know, that said.
Because it could also conceivably be the first one on the other side of Lincoln Way in front of Aria.
On Dartmouth.
On Dartmouth.
Right, I guess it could.
Because both that spot and the spot in front of the co-op closest to Lincoln Way are both close to the curb cut
Right.
and also close to the ramp.
It might be a little safer actually where you just mentioned, because you could open the.
You could open it without opening it into
Yeah.
traffic.
Yeah. So if I can proceed with that, I just kind of wanted to let people know. And the person who asked me the latest, I actually talked to today, so maybe I'll mention that other idea
Yeah.
as well. I would
That
guess that
would
we
be a much
actually.
safer place.
The law is very clear about parking lots. The law is not so clear about parking spaces on public streets. So while I don't think we're in violation of not having a spot there, if that was a parking lot, we would be in violation, but it's not.
Right.
But still, I think it's clear that the access there
Yep,
would be
yep.
better. So
Good idea.
I just wanted to let people know I was going to work
Right.
on that. It should be done pretty soon. We have meters. They're not free spots, it's just that we paint the street and the meter is blue. But people still have to pay. They don't, I mean, in some municipalities they don't, we've just never had a policy where the handicap spot is free. And the last thing I was going to mention, it came up at the last meeting, the aging in place folks did meet last week. They're making some revisions. Today was their last time to make revisions to their recommendations, and they'll be posted on the website as soon as they're done. Should be this week.
Okay.
That's it.
Bob, anything for
No, I
your
don't
part?
have anything, thanks.
Okay. And any other business?
I'll say one real quick thing, since the mayor's not here. SRA's really only major fundraiser is this Saturday, Oktoberfest. It's a biannual big town party with a ton of food and a ton of refreshments.
At the community center.
At the community center.
They talked about using the parking lot, I guess.
We kick around lots of crazy ideas, much like things come out of committee, but now we're at the community center again. But they have a beautiful outdoor space we use.
Yeah.
all
And
the
is that
time.
Saturday or
It's
Sunday?
this Saturday.
And the hours?
I
Sort of?
was afraid to not ask. I think it's 6 till question mark crazy. But if you pay online at the
It's
SRA,
8 to 11.
is it 8? Thank you. I'm there.
8 to 11.
I'm there probably at noon. If you register online, you save $5. It's 40 at the door, 35.
Great.
Great. Very good.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. Very good. Great.